The Swahili culture of Africa's east coast has always centered around the sea. The ocean-going Portuguese colonized Zanzibar as a trading post. The Omani Arabs conquered the island and left their indelible influence. Then, its most famous publicist arrived.
The year was 1866. The place, Stone Town. After almost 3 decades of exploration, David Livingstone penned these words. "This is the finest place I have known in all of Africa. It is an elusive place where nothing is as it seems. I am mesmerized." I guess what he was trying to say is a man could find his soul here.
Half a century before, it was the Sultan of Oman who, on the strength of one visit, decided to move his entire capital to Zanzibar. It was during his reign that the island's architectural renaissance burst into life. Though the 70s saw this great heritage badly neglected, these gems are now being resurrected.
236 Hurumzi was until recently formerly known as Emerson and Green, one of Zanzibar's most celebrated establishments. But before that, it was the house where the British bought freedom for slaves. Hurumzi means free men, those who have been shown mercy.
Atmosphere is all important, and furnishings are original Zanzibari antiques of varied origins. Stucco decor is in rich Eastern and African tones, and hand-painted glass lamps hang from the high ceilings. Second only to the Sultan's palace in height, the Tower Top restaurant caps the experience. The renovation was the dream of American Thomas Green.
How does an American working on Italian television as a choreographer and producer end up on the island of Zanzibar running an establishment?
The idea of having the possibility of restoring a historical building, what artist would not appreciate that? You know, you have this building which was very much in the rough when I first found it, and on a shoestring budget, managing to repair it, restore it, and bring it to life again.
If I had one day in Stone Town, perish the thought one day only, but one day, what would you recommend I see?
The Zanzibari doors. Wandering through the streets of Zanzibar, you'll see all these doors. And some of them are quite fantastic, actually, the carvings. They took a little bit from the Arabian culture, from the Indian culture. They have little knobs that are supposed to keep elephants away from the doors, but, you know, there's no elephants in Zanzibar. They were also the way a family expressed their wealth, their position in the society.
Behind the great wealth were a number of prosperous Indian merchants who, as well as making doors, built temples, mosques and churches reflecting their own multicultural society. But there was a worm at the heart of the Zanzibari apple.
Livingstone had explored Africa since the 1840s. He crossed the Kalahari Desert. He discovered the smoke that thunders. But the Scottish missionary's lasting legacy had to come from his impassioned tirade against the Zanzibari slave trade. His writings galvanized the British government to eventually stop the slave market in Stone Town and ultimately hasten the end to slavery in East Africa. No more chains, ever.
Africans from as far inland as present-day Zaire were captured and brought here to the largest slave markets in Africa. Once the groundswell of public opinion in Britain brought about their own ban on slavery, the British government then pressured that of Oman to outlaw the inhumane practice just over a century ago. A happy legacy of that era is that many former mainland Africans now inhabit the island. Along with the spices traded here, the mainland staples of cassava, yams and roasted maize are part of Zanzibar's cuisine. Most of it arrives or is exported via a very famous craft.
On the northernmost tip of the island is the village of Nungwi, the dhow building capital of Zanzibar. So if ever there was a time and a place to learn to build one of these iconic boats, this is it. Though I can hear all those boat builders there murmuring to themselves, "That Mzungu, I doubt it." Dhow, oh dear.
Shipwright Simba Ali hoped Mike's boat building beat his singing.
How long would it take to build one of these dhows, Simba?
Maybe 45 days.
And how long would a dhow last at sea?
Maybe 15 years old, but also depending how you locate.
Could I help you build this? Will you teach me how to draw?
Yeah, I can.
In the Middle Ages, these same tools made boats strong enough to sail as far as China. In the right hands, that is.
Hey, look at all that sawdust, Simba. Good, huh? Would you employ me?
Yes, I
You would?
Yeah.
And what would I pay for a boat like this? If I wanted this down now...
6 million shillings.
6 million, that's 6,000 US dollars.
One variety, known as the Mtepe, was even sewn together with cotton and could still carry almost 200 tons.
At 60,000 Rand a dhow, I figured it best rather to rent one than buy one. So I found one dedicated to the late Farouk Bulsara, one of Zanzibar's most famous celebrities. Farouk, who you ask? Well, Freddie Mercury of Queen fame, born and bred in Zanzibar.
We opted for outboards instead of wind power because we were in search of some rather swift company.
If Livingston were aboard and we spotted dolphins, I reckon the good doctor would have done something like this. Woohoo!
It's down south you find most of these fellows. Exactly who's entertaining who when you go swimming with dolphins is up for debate. The doctor is a tidy swimmer and had sizable flippers and free hands. But with a camera and underwater housing to worry about, our cameraman Vimpy had to push every ounce of muscle to make sure he got these shots.
Wow, what a great experience. Coming that close within spitting distance to these magnificent creatures. Fleeting, but breathtaking.
It's that trademark cut of the dhow's famous lateen sails that marks it out on the horizon. And it was with no more than the power of this sail that merchants shipped dates, fish and timber to the Persian Gulf as late as the 1960s. About that time, looking at instead of catching fish also caught on.
Livingston may have explored Africa on foot, but it's unlikely he ever explored the waters around the continent. However, if he were alive today, I have no doubt he would have joined us for a scuba dive. Who knows, maybe even he and Stanley would have met for the first time underwater, and history would have recorded that meeting as the bedroom.
One woman who speaks that kind of language is respected local dive master Tammy Holter.
Well, I think Zanzibar is really special for the diversity of the life that we get here. We get things from about 10 different species of scorpion fish to frogfish to seahorses. Some of those scorpion fish are things that most people don't find anywhere else in the world. Things like weedy scorpion fish, Mauritius scorpion fish.
And tell me, what are the best seasons to dive here in Zanzibar?
At the moment is when our monsoon winds are blowing. This is our kaskazi winds that you're seeing now. Normally you're going to look out and it's flat like a pancake. It doesn't really affect the visibility. If anything, it brings in the clean water from deep in the Pimba Channel and clears up the visibility.
For divers, X marks the spot around the island's coral reefs. Tammy's dived every continent except Antarctica, and that she set up shop here says a lot. Among the 350 species she told us about, we spotted the very impressive lionfish, the fittingly named crocodile fish, the seahorse, magical in its element, the scorpion, and leaf fish, a magnificent marine reserve.
Feels like I've just been on an underwater safari and seen the big five in less than half an hour. It was amazing. And you called it, Sammy.
Was it as good as I promised?
It was better. Thanks.
For all the activity and discoveries to be made, it's also okay to just sit and wonder.
It's been 150 years since Livingston passed this way, and still his words ring true. Zanzibar is elusive and mesmerizing. Strange then that he had his heart buried in Zambia and not on the Spice Island. Where would you bury your heart, given the choice?
As we discovered for ourselves, everything you've heard about glorious Zanzibar lives up to its reputation.
Coming up after the break, wheeling and dealing with Aiden in preparation for a smooth August. And Beatlemania has a new set of fans screaming for more. At one point back